Just going to wait a moment to allow the participants to come in. Just joining us now. They're still coming in. Okay, we are now live streaming on YouTube. So Madam Chair, whenever you're ready to start, you can begin.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the November 11th Committee of Adjustment meeting. It's 4:03 and I'll call the meeting to order. I will first read the opening remarks. So welcome everyone to the first virtual meeting for the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Central Frontenac. I would first like to thank the members of the public, committee members, and the staff for making this meeting possible so that we can proceed with the processing of applications in a safe manner. And just so members of the public are aware, all members of the public are muted on our end and your cameras will not be turned on. For those of you who may be new to the Committee of Adjustment, my name is Sherry Wan and I am the chair of the committee. We also have Frances Smith joining us. Hello, Frances.
Hi.
Hello. And Victor Hees. Hi, Victor.
Evening.
We don't have Brent this evening.
He was.
We have also, sorry. Hi, Brent. We have Brent Cameron. Tom Dewey. Sorry, no Tom this evening. And Bill McDonald. Hi, Bill.
Hi, everyone.
As well as Nikki Gowdy. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, everyone.
We have Cindy Diekman, our deputy clerk, who will be assisting us as the meeting host. And we are also joined by the planning staff. Only the Committee of Adjustments video will be on. The format of the meeting will allow us to follow the agenda posted online, which can be found on the township's website. And the staff have also prepared a presentation for everyone to follow along with during the meeting. This will be shown on the screen. If you have joined us via the phone, we encourage you to open up the presentation in the agenda and follow along. For each application with a public hearing, we will follow this format slide, and I, as the chair, will introduce the file so that everyone knows where we are on the agenda. The planner will then provide an overview of the application. We will then ask if there are any comments from the applicant or their agent. Committee members will then ask staff and the applicant or their agent any questions if they have any, and then the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. I encourage you to ask any questions that you feel comfortable with in the process. The committee will then deliberate and vote on each application, and the voting will take place with the members of the committee raising their hands, and I will then state whether or not the vote was carried. If there are any previously deferred items, they will be first on the agenda, as the public meeting has already been held for those. We will ask if the applicants themselves have any questions. All members of the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the new applications. And if a person or public body does not make an oral submission at the meeting or make a written submission to the Township of Frontenac before the decision is made, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Township staff will be in touch following the meeting, and they will be forwarding a copy of any decision within 15 days to the applicant and anyone who has requested to be notified. Should you have any questions after the meeting, we encourage you to reach out to the staff. The applicant, the minister, or any other person or public body who has an interest in the matter may, within 20 days of making the decision or date of a notice of appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal against the decision of the committee by filing with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee a notice of appeal. And I will now ask Cindy Diekman to provide an overview of how members of the public can participate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When the meeting is open to the public, the chair will ask the members of the public if they have any questions or comments. The members of the public will be asked to use the raise hand feature down at the bottom middle of your screen. When you click that button, it alerts the chair that you would like to speak. Staff will notify the chair that someone wishes to speak, and then we'll proceed to unmute your microphone. As a member of public, you will receive a notification that your microphone has been unmuted. Please wait a second or two after unmuting your microphone before speaking. If you are calling in by telephone, please use the *9 feature when you would like to raise your hand during the meeting. You will hear a prompt on the phone that you have raised your hand, and you will be notified when your microphone has been unmuted. This afternoon, it does look like we have about 10 members of the public participating with us on the line. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Cindy. In the unlikely account that a committee member disconnects from the meeting will proceed if quorum is met and the committee member will continue to attempt to reconnect. Should all members of the committee disconnect, the meeting will then be postponed and all members will be asked to reconnect. If the meeting cannot be restored within 15 minutes, the meeting will be postponed and staff will be in touch with each applicant. A notice will then be posted on the township social media, letting you know. And we thank you for your patience as we all embark on this virtual meeting. Okay. I will call a motion to approve the minutes or approve the agenda, sorry, as presented. Sorry, did I do something wrong here? Okay. Do I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Nikki to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from any member of the committee on this evening's agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to declare one on agenda items 5A and 5B. The parcel in question, I am a property owner to the vicinity to the immediate north. So I'm within the zone, so I'm declaring a conflict of interest on this.
Okay, thanks very much, Brent. We'll have that in the minutes. Thank you. And I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Victor that the minutes of the October 14th meeting be adopted as presented. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, the first issue on our agenda is item B0521HI, the LALTA, and it is amending conditions. So I'll have Crystal speak to that, and as well as our planning staff.
So application 05 and 07 is amending the right-of-way conditions for Lawrence Valita off of 38 on Nicole Lake. I think Jenny will speak on it.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to the committee. This is, I'll just refresh the committee's memory on this. This is 2 parcels that were approved earlier this year. They were for a waterfront lot and a non-waterfront lot with a right-of-way for access from Road 38. The committee did grant approval of these with the configuration shown on the screen right now. One of the questions that was raised and concern as to why we're looking at amending the conditions was with regards to the construction of this right-of-way. There's no objection to the construction standards of private lanes. However, as both parcels are being sold to another person rather than being retained by the applicant as part of the lot creation, there is a request that the lane construction be undertaken through or in conjunction with a development agreement to be done, registered on title to ensure that that construction takes place prior to the issuance of a building permit, rather than prior to the issuance of the certificates of official for the creation of these lots. Generally, that's not something the committee or the planning staff recommend, as once the lots are created, it is more challenging to ensure that things are constructed and completed as the conditions in the application were approved. However, in this case, the planning staff have come up with a revised condition, which you can now see on the screen, that rather than just having the right-of-way be surveyed and constructed to the private lane standard as a condition, the revised condition is worded as shown, that a development agreement be registered on title at the time of creation of these lots, so that the right-of-way can be surveyed at the right width as part of the new lot creation and be surveyed at that 20-meter width required in the private lanes. However, this development agreement will have a requirement that the final construction be completed and signed off on by township public works staff prior to any building permit being issued for either of those lots. that's what we're coming forward with, and planning staff are recommending approval of this amendment to the condition, and that the development agreement be put together and approved by council prior to being registered on title.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. Are there any questions or comments by the applicant or their agent on the application?
I don't believe we have the applicant on. Is there anyone representing the applicant if you want to use the raise hand feature? I don't see anyone, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any members on the committee regarding the application? Bill, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just wondering, I have no objections to this. I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I'm just wondering what impact, if any, this application is going to have on the fact that the K&P goes through this lot, and whether or not that's recognized in any kind of the language in the agreement.
Okay, maybe Jenny?
Yes, I can speak to that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
The approval of a right-of-way and easement across the K&P trail is one of the conditions required for the approval of these lots. This won't have an impact on that, as this construction is just for the part that will link Road 38 to the K&P trail. It's not intended for this construction standard to be across the trail, as the county has their own standards and maintenance on the trail itself. So this is just for the part where it's constructed over the parcel from Road 38 up to where it abuts up to the K&P trail.
Thank you. The only question.
Thanks, Jenny. Good question, Bill. Any other members of the committee have a question on the application? Okay, seeing none, do we have any members from the public joining us this evening, Cindy?
Is anyone wishing to speak? Can you use the raise hand feature at this time? I see none, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the motion. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Nikki that consent application B0521HI Villalta for the property located at part lot 7 and 8, concession 2 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook, to amend the right-of-way and condition number 6 for application B0521HI as follows: that a developmental agreement be registered on title at the applicant's expense at the time of the creation of the new lot, and that it is approved through consent application B0521HI. This development agreement should require that the right-of-way described in condition number 5 be surveyed and constructed to the private lane standards established in the Frontenac County Private Lane Study 2016 prior to the issuance of a building permit for the development on either of the lots to be created through the consent of application B0521HI and B0721HI, and that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of the decision to the applicant or any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and or other persons or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of the decision shall be completed and the certificate of the official issued within a period of 1 year after the notice of the decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And the second application, which Jenny also spoke to, the conditions are the same. So I'll go ahead and read the motion. The motion is moved by Bill and seconded by Fran for B0721HI Villalta. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is a previously deferred items, and it is B4221HI Kogan, the creation of a right-of-way, and I'll have Crystal introduce the application, and one of our planning staff can speak to the application.
So it is for Colgan for a right-of-way. It's off of Echo Lake Road. It goes into Echo Lake. So I think Jenny will speak to this one again.
Thank you. Yes, that is me again. Again, to refresh the committee's memory, this is an application for a right-of-way extension with access to several properties along Echo Lake. As we noted before, this application or this the subject property does have an existing right-of-way that runs here along the southern part. However, there's wetlands and some challenges with that. The proposed extension to the right-of-way was the red area. During the initial investigation and review, it was determined there's wetlands located in that area. As you can see on this air photo here, it was hard to tell until you get out on a site visit. So Quinty went out and did a site visit, noted that those are wetlands. So as a result of that, the initially proposed area for the extension is this blue hatched area here, with the expanded area, the pink area that is larger. That allows sufficient area to construct the right-of-way with the 30-meter setback to wetlands and being within the surveyed right-of-way. So rather than having it just a little bit with a bit on the other side, the right-of-way surveyed area will be this entire pink thing. However, the road construction will take place only along the outside edge and will not bisect the wetlands in any way. Quinty Conservation has no objections to this revised proposal as it meets their requirements for conservation of wetlands. This application was deferred last time as there was delay in getting the conditions of approval up onto the Civic Web and having them circulated for appropriate review. So the committee deferred that application until everyone had had sufficient time to review the conditions. Planning staff would like to note that no further questions have been received by any member of the public since the last committee of adjustment meeting. Therefore, we are in the understanding that no further concerns have been raised or have been noted by any members of the public. As such, planning staff are recommending approval of this application with the conditions noted in the planning report and with this revised right-of-way area.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. Do we have any questions from the applicant or their agent this evening?
Applicant wishes to speak. Can you use the raise hand feature? Just a moment, please. Okay. Hogan, I've moved you over. Can you speak?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. We don't have much to say that we haven't said before. We're just here to listen, and I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from any of the committee members regarding the application? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any questions or any members from the public wishing to speak?
If there's anyone wishing to speak, use the raise hand feature. I see none, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Fran that consent application B4221 HI Kogan for the property located at part lot 16, concession 7 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook to create a right-of-way be approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report, and that the secretary treasurer shall issue a notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of the decision shall be completed, and the certificate of the official issued within a period of 1 year after the notice of decision was issued, as required by the Planning Act. And the applicant will receive a copy of all of the conditions. Is there any further discussion on the application? Okay, everyone in favor? Okay, motion is carried.
Madam Chair, I do see that Ms. Colgan has put her hand up.
Oh, okay,
so let's
sorry.
see if there was something additionally.
I was just wondering, with the approval, now do we proceed with getting the survey completed? I'm just not sure what the process is.
Crystal would be happy to help you walk you through the process if you would like to call Crystal.
Fabulous. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, our next item on the agenda is applications B 3021 OS, the lake creation of a new lot. And I'll have Crystal introduce the applications and Jenny or Dimitri speak to it.
So there's 3 consent applications for lakes, B 3021, B 31, and B 32. It's for the creation of 3 new lots. It's down on Warrington Lane on Sharp Lake. They're not on the lake. And then there's a minor variance as well. Jenny will speak on it.
Thank you, Crystal. Yes, as noted, this application is for the creation of 3 new non-waterfront lots. They'll be rural lots. They will be fairly large in size compared to the minimum requirements. The first lot will be about 6 acres in area, the second one about 8 acres in area, and the third one about 8 acres or so. There is some variability to this due to the area and the topography, as well as some other things that I'm going to note through this application. The subject property is designated rural and zoned rural, and there's no recommendation to changes for any of that. The subject property is also was part of the Warrington subdivision for phase 2, initially proposed. However, that was never developed and never received final approval. So at this point, there are no planning approvals or subdivision requirements for the subject property. However, it does butt up to the developed Warrington subdivision with frontage on Charlotte Lake. I'm going to go here. So you can see on this diagram, this is approximate, and I have been working with the applicant. There may be some slight alteration to the boundaries along on the northern side of Warrington Road, just trying to make sure that we're getting the right parts. There's some challenges with regards to this, as the surveyed area here shown as the turnaround as part of the subdivision is not actually where the snowplows turn around. That's actually farther up, closer to the gate. Additionally, there's some other challenges with that. So we worked on this. The approximate areas and locations for these are correct, and planning staff will work with township staff to ensure that at the time of survey, the intent and the requirements are met, even if this line here is shifted slightly. It's a matter of having, again, this says 8 and 6 acres, and then it's actually going to be about 8 and 8 acres for each of them. And then I hope that makes sense to the committee. The intent is the same with a slight variation of a couple acres here and there on them, which on parcels of this size is within the scope and does not change my planning recommendation. So as I noted, some of the challenges with regards to this is that the subject property does butt up to the Warrington subdivision. As a result, you can see shown on this, there is a 0.3 meter reserve that is a standard condition of most subdivision approvals that occurs at the end of roads. And this is to limit further development or access with the subdivision lands on the abutting properties unless other planning approvals have been obtained. In this case, the 0.3 meter reserve at the end of the cul-de-sac here, as well as at the end of the area of a part to be closed. And the half of this cul-de-sac have remained in the name of the applicants. However, they are dealt with as part of the subdivision agreement and are considered to be part of the subdivision. And as such, there will be a requirement for the township to pass a deeming bylaw, which deems these portions out of the subdivision in order to add them back in and have them dealt with as part of these consent applications. That is being recommended to be a condition of approval of all 3 lots that this takes place. One of the other conditions recommended as a result of this is due to the Warrington subdivision having this spur here at the entrance to it where it comes over from the abutting property, that this was intended to be one of the second entrances that came around and met up with the cul-de-sac However, as that phase 2 has never been developed, this also has the 0.3 meter reserve at the end. And this section of Warrington Road was actually transferred into ownership of the township. But as the phase 2 was never developed or proceeded with, it was never opened or used as a road. So it's considered an unopened road allowance. The applicants have been before council, and on October 26th at the regular council meeting, a resolution was passed approving in principle that this section of Warrington Road be stopped up and closed and transferred into the ownership of the applicant so that it can be added on to the subject land and provide an increased road frontage for proposed lot 3. As you can see on this map, proposed lot 3 does include that area of road closing. Even with that road closing at a 20-meter standard width plus the 12 to 13 meters, I think it was maybe 14 on the north side, the total road frontage for this property will only be 34 meters. The township bylaw requires a minimum of 46 meters for the creation of any new rural lots. So the concurrent minor variance application has been submitted to recognize the deficiency in road frontage that will exist for proposed lot 3, which is B3221. B30 and 31 will have sufficient road allowance. Once also a sort of a possibility of a land exchange, the exact details are being worked out. Planning staff are recommending that this portion of the property be transferred back into the lot, and then the township actually maintains about 40 meters-ish past where the surveyed area is. So the turnaround that the township uses is actually up here on the map, whereas it's surveyed down here. So there was some challenges in figuring out exactly where the township maintains to, where they don't, who owns what. So once everything's been deemed out as part of the plan of subdivision, the intent and recommendation of planning is that the entire area that is currently maintained by the township be transferred into the ownership of the township. So that way they actually own the road in which they maintain, rather than just having that implied ownership through maintenance. That will provide sufficient frontage for both of these, because then the frontage will be measured from this point down here rather than up at the cul-de-sac end. So each of these new lots will have approximately 55 to 60 meters. Again, the exact amount will depend on exactly how far the township maintains and will be determined at the time of the survey. Both of these lots will have at minimum the required 46 meters of frontage for a new rural lot. In all likelihood, they will have more than the required, probably, as I said, about 55 meters, but that will be determined at the time of the survey. These applications were circulated to Township of South Frontenac for review of septic suitability. All comments came back with no objections. The size of the lots was noted as favorable, providing flexibility on site for the location of septic systems. Though, as common through many of the Frontenacs, most likely additional suitable granular soil will be required, because getting a 5 foot of non-clay soil is somewhat of a challenge. These applications are also circulated to Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority for review. As you can see, there's large areas of wetlands, water bodies, lakes, all sorts of things on the subject property. The comments came back at October 29th with no objections to the creation of any of the 3 lots. They did note that there are numerous identified unevaluated and evaluated wetlands, small water bodies. Rock Cliff Lake is at the rear of the retained parcel, as well as significant areas of organic soils on the subject property, primarily in association with the mapped wetland areas. However, even with all of these natural features on the property, conservation staff is satisfied that there is sufficient area for development that meets all required setbacks and will not have any impact with regards to the natural heritage features that exist on this property. No human-made hazards were identified, and no public comments were received with regards to these applications. As a result, planning staff are recommending approval of all 3 of these applications. pending a number of conditions and additional requirements, including the closure of the unopened road allowance at the north for proposed lot 3, which is, as I noted, B3221, and approval of the minor variance application, which I will also discuss as part of this in just one moment. I'm just going to finish up with this side. Is that no comments received? So providing we can do the deeming bylaw, to figure out exactly all of the small parts out of the plan of subdivision to make sure that they get added into the lots and we can work all of those things through. Planning staff would recommend approval of all 3 lots. As I noted, there is a concurrent minor variance application submitted. This just is a highlight of the areas that I noted earlier that reduces the frontage from 46 meters to 34 meters and makes a bit of a flag shaped lot here. However, it is appropriate for development, and without approval of this minor variance, this second lot here, or I guess the third lot, would not be supportable, as it would only have about 12 meters of road frontage. And while 34 is less, it is slightly less. 12 meters would be just too small and wouldn't really allow sufficient space to even get an access and entrance properly into the parcel. So planning staff are recommending approval of this minor variance application as well, in concurrent approval to the consent applications on the basis that this is a minor reduction in road frontage. It does not impact the development ability or the property to meet all of the other provisions of the zoning bylaw. It's desirable for the appropriate development, as I noted, that without this approval, the lot would not really be able to be created or would not be able to be recommended approval from the planning perspective. And it meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and that all other provisions and policies will be able to be met with approval of this variance for the creation of the new lot. As such, planning staff are recommending approval of all 3 lot creations and this minor variance application.
Thank you, Jenny. Do we have the applicant or an agent acting on behalf of the applicant joining us tonight that would like to speak to the application? Or the 3 applications, sorry.
If the applicant wishes to speak, can you use your raise hand feature? Okay, I see her hand up here, so I'm going to move her over. Okay. Can you unmute and speak, please? There we go.
Yes, we are here if you have any questions, but I think it was well presented, so thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Do you have any further comments you'd like to make, Mrs. Lake?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone from the committee have any questions or comments regarding the application, Bill?
Yes, I just want to get a clarification here on this, is that these are really not on Charlotte Lake. If I'm reading the maps correctly, they're on the Warrington Road, which was originally the Meredith subdivision, but these lots of, Jenny, am I correct in looking at this, that they really do not touch Charlotte Lake?
That is correct. Yes, the reference to Sharbert Lake was more to the phase 1 of the subdivision that does have the waterfront properties. This, as being the backlot development, none of the proposed lots will have any frontage on Sharbert Lake.
I'm sorry, I'm giving up my age here, because when originally that was known as the Meredith subdivision.
Sorry, I've just referred to it as the Warrington Road one, as that's the name of the road in it, and I didn't know the original applicants.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Thank you. Anyone else on the committee have any questions or comments regarding either of the applications? Okay, all in favor?
We ask.
I'm sorry. Do we have any members of the public joining us this evening with any questions or comments?
If there's anyone who wishes to speak, can you use your raise hand feature, please? I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I will go ahead and read the motion. The conditions are the same for 2 of the applications, so I'll just read the conditions. So So I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Victor that consent application B 3021 OS Lake for the property located on part lot 10, concession 4 in the geographic township of Oso to create a 3.24 hectare or 8-acre parcel as a new lot be approved, subject to the conditions noted in the planning report with the following amendments. That prior to the signing of the certificate of the official for the lot to be created through consent application B 3021 OS, that the township of Central Frontenac deems the 0.3 meter reserves and half of the survey cul-de-sac identified as blocks 23, 24, 25, and 26, plan 1962 to no longer be a part of the registered plan in the subdivision. And that prior to the signing of the certificate of the official for the lot to be created through the consent application B 3021 OS, the portion of Warrington Road maintained by the township of Central Frontenac that extends past the surveyed cul-de-sac be surveyed and transferred to the township as follows. A, the surveyor who prepares the reference plan referred to in the condition number 4 shall also determine by survey the 20 meter or 66 foot wide allowance for a road along the length of Warrington Road, which fronts along the lot to be created by consent applications B 3021 OS. This allowance for the road shall be measured 33 feet on each side from the center line, existing in size, shape, and the existing turnaround shown on plan 1962 as blocks 23, 24, 25, and 26. At the location where the township currently maintains, the owner shall dedicate the township the land along the frontage of the severed lands in the following manner. The land to be dedicated shall be described as a separate part on the reference plan of the survey to be prepared and deposited at the owner's expense and filed with the secretary treasurer prior to the stamping of the deeds. 2, that the transfer or deed from the owner from the land dedicated shall be engrossed in the name of the township, the corporation of the township of Central Frontenac, and shall include the following attached transfer deed as a schedule. The transfer hereby transfers the lands to the municipality for the purpose of widening the adjacent highway pursuant to section 31(6) of the Municipal Act 2001, chapter 25 as amended. That the secretary treasurer shall issue the notice of the decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of the decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of the decision shall be completed and the certificate of the official issued within a period of 1 year after the notice of the decision was issued as required by the Planning Act, and the applicant will receive a copy of the conditions. All those in favor of the application? Motion is carried. Thank you. The second application would be that consent application B 3121 OS Lake for the property located at part lot 10 concession 4 in the geographic township of Oso to create a 3.8 hectare parcel as a new lot be approved, subject to the conditions noted in the planning report with the following amendments, and all of those conditions are the same as the previous application. The motion is moved by Bill and seconded by Brent. All those in favor of the application? Motion is carried. Thank you. I will now read the consent for the third application. So I have a motion moved by Fran and seconded by Bill that consent application B 3221 OS Lake for the property located at part lot 10, concession 4 in the geographic township of Oso to create a 4.45 hectare parcel as a new lot be approved, subject to the following conditions noted in the planning report with the following amendment to condition 7. That prior to the signing of the certificate of the official for the lot to be created through consent application B 3221 OS, that the township of Central Frontenac deems the 0.3 meter reserve identified as block 27 on plan 1962 to no longer be a part of the registered plan of the subdivision. That the secretary of the treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of the decision to the applicant and any person or public body that made a written request to be notified and any other person or public body to be described, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of the decision shall be completed and the certificate of the official issued within a period of 1 year after the notice of the decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, our next application will be for a minor variance.
We're gonna finish the,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Oh, okay, so this is the minor variance. So I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Nikki. That the minor variance. Sorry. Oh, a 1621 lake reduction to the reduction of the road frontage be approved. In making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building or structure, and that the general intent or purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained in the case of change in a new use of property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw, and as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of the subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for the decision. That the minor variance application A 1621 Lake for the property located at Part Lot 10, Concession 4, in the geographic township of Oso at 1270 Warrington Road, to allow for the reduction in the minimum required lot frontage as a result of an application for consent for the creation of a new rural lot be approved, subject to the following conditions noted in the planning report. And that the secretary treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, and any person or public body that has made a written request shall be notified, and any other person or public body as prescribed. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, our next application is B 6121 HI Harvey, and it's the creation of a new lot. I'll have Crystal introduce the application, and one of our planning staff can discuss the application.
So it's for the creation of a new lot. It's in the former Hinchinbrook Township. It has frontage on White Lake and 40-foot road. And Dimitri is going to speak on it.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Crystal. Yeah, just for everybody's, my name is Dimitri. I'm a planner with the County of Frontenac. So consent application B 6121 proposes to sever a 57.2 hectare or 141 acre parcel from an existing 65.8 hectare or 162 acre lot located at 1758 40-foot road in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook. The lot proposed to be severed will have approximately 104 meters or 340 feet of frontage along 40-foot road and a combined frontage of about 605 meters or about 1,985 feet along White Lake Road. The lot to be severed is vacant with residential development anticipated. The lot to be retained will be approximately 8.58 hectares or 21.2 acres in area with approximately 197 meters or 646 feet of frontage along 40-foot road. The retained parcel contains an existing dwelling and 2 accessory structures. Both the proposed severed and retained lands are designated and zoned as rural in the township official plan and the township zoning bylaw. The application was circulated to the Quinte Conservation Authority and the Township of South Frontenac for technical comments. The Township of South Frontenac had no objections. They determined that the severed lot is able to support a standard class 4 septic system in a flexible location. The retained parcel, since it's already developed, already has a septic system on the property. The Quinte Conservation Authority did not object to the application either. They did identify the presence of unevaluated wetlands and watercourses on the subject property. However, those features are not anticipated to reduce the development envelope on the proposed severed lot. QCA staff determined that overall the severed parcel has enough area for development that's also outside of any natural hazards. The one thing that QCA did note in their analysis was that the existing culvert beneath the watercourse or the ditch on the retained parcel may actually not be large enough to convey water properly. They have recommended this culvert to be upgraded. However, this has not been included as a condition in this application. The subject property also supports livestock. Planning staff conducted a minimum distance separation calculation for nearby buildings on the subject property, as well as properties in the surrounding area that appeared to be livestock facilities. MDS calculations showed that the retained lands contain, the proposed severed lands contain a sufficient area for new residential uses that's sufficiently separated from potential livestock facilities. Although planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed severance is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, the township official plan, and the zoning bylaw, there is one policy that needs to be highlighted for the purpose of this application. Because this application was submitted prior to the new official plan coming into effect, the application was assessed against the policies of the 2008 official plan. Specifically, section 10.11.13b.4 of the 2008 official plan states that only 2 consents may be granted for a lot of record, and that additional severances may only be granted under limited circumstances. Those circumstances include the land. It requires the landowner to own the property for at least 10 years prior to any additional severances. The subject property was subject to severances sometimes in 2018. I've created, or I showed the 2018 severances in orange on the map in front of, on the screen in front of you. Planning staff are the opinion that the additional severances of this lot does not conflict with the policies of the official plan. This is because the property owner has owned the lands for more than 10 years. Planning staff did not identify any land use incompatibility issues that would be anticipated as a result of the severance. The severance was not anticipated to impact any natural heritage systems or features, and the proposed severed lot contains a lot of area that could support a development envelope and a location to place a septic system all throughout the property. So all this considered, planning staff recommend that the Committee of Adjustment hears comments from the public and approve the application as submitted, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Cindy, do we have the applicant or an agent acting on their behalf joining us this evening?
Is anyone here to represent the property owner? Can you please use the raise hand feature if you wish to speak? I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from any member on the committee regarding the application? Okay, do we have any members from the public joining us this evening that would like to speak to the application?
If there is anyone wishing to speak, can you please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen? Madam Chair.
Okay. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Fran that consent application B6121HI Harvey for the property located at Part Lot 10, Concession 1 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook for a 57.2 hectare parcel as a new lot be approved, subject to the following conditions noted in the planning report. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with all of the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that had made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of the decisions shall be completed and the certificate of the official issued within a period of 1 year after the notice of decision was issued as required by the Planning Act, and the applicant will receive a copy of the conditions. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay. Our next item on the agenda is B6321HI, and it's Smale for the creation of a new lot. And I'll have Crystal introduce the application and one of our planning staff to speak to the application.
So it's for the creation of a new lot. It's former Hinchinbrook Township, and it's also located on the 40-foot road. And I'm not sure if Jenny or Dimitri is speaking on this one.
Thank you. That'll be Jenny on this one this evening. This application is for the creation of one new lot with an area of approximately 0.79 hectares, just under 2 acres in area, with approximately 95 meters of frontage along 40-foot road. The retained parcel is a decent sized at about 51.8 hectares, 128 acres, and it has almost 1,500 meters of frontage along 40-foot road, in addition to frontage on Road 38. As you can see on this slide, the subject property is the green one. It is a fairly decent sized. The proposed lot is the blue square down here at the bottom of the subject property. This property does contain existing structures, including dwelling, accessory structures, and a livestock facility. An MDS calculation was completed, and it was determined that the proposed lot is well outside the area of influence for that livestock facility. As such, no issues were raised with regards to that. There are some licensed pit areas in the vicinity. However, they are greater than 300 meters from the proposed lot and outside the area of influence, so no further studies were required with regards to those either. This application was circulated for review of septic suitability. The initial comments back from Township of South Frontenac on October 29th indicated concerns with the soil depth of the test holes, in addition to their location between some rocky outcrops and having limited ability to meet the minimum requirements for the installation of a septic system. The applicants went out and identified an alternative location on the proposed lot where they could dig test holes. Those were dug, and a subsequent site visit was conducted by the Township of South Frontenac. Comments received November 4th indicated no objections based on the revised test hole location. Further, these comments noted that most likely this is probably the only spot on there, and additional soil will be required, as is very common throughout the township. However, they do have no objection to the application based on that revised location. This application was not circulated to Quincy Conservation, as there were no natural or human-made hazards identified on the subject or on the proposed lot, and no public comments were received as a result of the public notification process. Based on the analysis, planning staff are recommending a committee adjustment, hear comments from the public, and approve this application as submitted.
Thank you, Jenny. Do we have the applicant or an agent for the applicant joining us this evening?
If there's anyone wishing to speak on behalf of the applicant, please use the raise hand feature. I see no one, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any members from the committee with any questions or comments regarding the application? Victor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just as noted on page 6 of the planning report, I'd like to just send my thanks to the Public Works Department of South Frontenac for going to check the entrance evaluation.
I apologize for that. Having South Frontenac be the septic inspectors does lead me to sometimes switch south and central in perhaps not the right location. It was actually Central's Public Works, but it would be nice if we could share the services.
Okay, thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Cut and paste error, yep.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions regarding the application? Okay, I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Fran that the consent application B6321 HI Smale for the property located at Part Lot 6, Concession 2 in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook for a 0.79 hectare or 1.97 acre parcel as a new lot be approved subject to the conditions noted in the planning report. That the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of the decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that made a written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed, and that all conditions outlined in the notice of decision shall be completed at the certificate of the official issued within a period of 1 year after the notice of the decision was issued as required by the Planning Act. And the applicant will receive a copy of the conditions. Oh, and I apologize. Did I ask? I just want to make sure that I did ask if anyone from the public had any questions or comments regarding the application.
I will ask if there is anyone to use the raise hand feature at this time. No, I just see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I got thrown off with Victor's question. All in favor? Thank you, guys. Okay, our next application is B6421HI Radicek. I apologize. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's the creation of a new lot. And there are actually two applications. So I'll have Crystal introduce the applications and one of our planning staff to speak to it.
So B64 and 65 is a creation of two new lots. It's former Hinchinbrook Township, and it's also off the 40-foot road. It's on a private lake, and Dimitri's going to speak on these ones.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you, Crystal. Yeah, consent application B6421 and B6521 propose to create two new waterfront residential lots from an existing 75 hectare or 185 acre lot located at Part Lot 6, Concession 1, with frontage on 40-foot road in the geographic township of Hinchinbrook. The subject property does not have a municipal address. The two lots that are proposed to be created will be approximately 4.85 hectares or 12 acres in area, with approximately 219 meters or 718 feet of frontage on an existing unnamed artificial lake. To facilitate access to these two lots, the applicants will be required to construct a new private lane. Both proposed lots are vacant with residential development anticipated. The retained lot will be approximately 65.45 hectares or 161 acres in area, with approximately 257 meters of frontage along 40-foot road and a combined water frontage of approximately 1.1 kilometers. The retained parcel is developed with an existing agricultural building that is currently being used for storage and as a workshop. Both the proposed severed and retained lands are designated and zoned as rural in the township official plan and the township zoning bylaw. This application is we're asking for this application to be deferred because there's a number of questions that have come up regarding the location and nature and ownership of the new proposed private lane. The policies resulting from the county's 2016 private lane studies and the township's official plan require that all new private lanes are constructed to a minimum standard, but they also require those private lanes to be managed as a common element condominium between the benefiting landowners. Such an agreement ensures that the private lane is maintained and managed by the benefiting landowners rather than the township. The main question that has come up is, does a new private lane held as a common element condominium result in a natural severance of the bisecting lots? If the answer is yes, then the location of the new private lane will result in the creation of 4 new lots rather than 2. So at this point, county and township staff are awaiting legal input prior to making a recommendation. Following the legal input, planning staff will work with the applicants to ensure the intent of the official plan policies are met. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Do we have the applicant or an agent acting on behalf of the applicant joining us this evening with any questions or comments?
We do have the applicant on. I do have somebody with their hand up. I'm not sure if they're representing the owner and the applicant, but if either, I will move them over, and if the applicant also wants to be moved over, I can allow you to speak as well. I am now moving Stephen Davidson over.
Yep, actually, I'm the applicant, Mike Radchuk. We both own the property together, Stephen Davidson, Mike Radchuk, and the agent Julie Lee is with me as well for any questions.
Hi, how are you?
Do you have any comments or questions at this point?
No, I think Dimitri's been very helpful so far. I think just awaiting the decision. I think kind of he stated the intended purpose is the retained lot will maintain ownership by myself and Mike Radchuk, and then the new severed lots are for the purpose of development of our personal dwellings on the subject land.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments or any questions for the applicant from any member of the committee?
I just have a comment about the private lane being a dividing line for severances. We have a lot of private lanes, and I would hope that a private lane does not divide up property, because there will be a lot of them divided up in our township. So I I know we need a legal opinion, but I'm hoping when you get that opinion, you can let the committee know because I think it has major implications.
Thank you for your question, Fran. Dimitri, did you want to comment at all?
Yeah, thank you for the question through the chair. I will definitely get back to you once we do receive legal input and how that's going to impact the township. There is a difference between existing private lanes versus new private lanes to be created. So existing private lanes are not necessarily held in as a common element condominium agreement. They were typically done under a different type of legal agreement, or maybe no agreement at all. In this case, this is a new private lane that's being considered, and this is an application of more or less new private lanes policies with a very specific or a very site-specific implication where the private lane is bisecting those two new lots. Typically, we'd want to see that road be moved to the edge of those new properties, and that's something we do now for infill development on new or on existing private lanes. But we will get back to you once we do receive input, and then we'll provide further direction on this file following the legal input. Thank you.
Thanks, Dimitri. Does any other members of the committee have any questions or comments? Victor?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the map here, and it looks to me like the new private lane would only bisect the lot number 1. It does not go all the way through lot number 2. So then it would be limited. It wouldn't be 4 new lots, it would be 3. And I think 3 are permitted, are they not?
The official plan only allows two lots to be created through severance. Anything more than that requires a different type of land division application.
Okay. Any other
Thank you, Dimitri.
members of the committee have any questions or comments regarding the application? Okay. Do we have any members of the public?
There is anyone else who wishes to speak? Can you use the raise hand feature? I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay. I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Victor that consent application B6421 HI Ratachek for the property located at part lot 6, concession 1 in the geographic township of Hintonbrook to create a 4.85 hectare parcel as a new lot be deferred until the township and county staff require more legal input and an interpretation prior to making the recommendation on the application. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And I have another motion moved by Fran and seconded by Brent, and they're the same conditions. That this application be deferred until the township and county staff can get more legal input. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, our next item on the agenda is applications for minor variance, and there are one application A17 KE Denmark to reduce the front yard water body setback, and I'll have Crystal introduce the application, and one of our planning staff can speak to the application.
So it's a minor variance for Denmark. It's located on Bull Lake in the former Kennebec district. And I think Jenny's speaking on it.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Crystal, it's actually Dimitri this time, but thank you. Minor variance application A1721 seeks a variance to the required water body and front yard setback of an existing non-complying structure. The purpose of this variance is to accommodate the reconstruction and enlargement of the existing cottage. The subject property is located on the western shore of Bull Lake at municipal address 1130A Bull Lake Road in the township of Kennebec, or the former township of Kennebec. The property is in the existing, an existing slightly undersized 0.9 hectare or 2.42 acre lot that is accessed from Bull Lake Road. The property is designated as waterfront area by the official plan, and it's zoned as waterfront residential by the zoning bylaw. The property supports 5 small cottages that were originally constructed between 1924 and 1954. There's also an accessory structure on the property, as well as 2 sewage disposal systems. At one point, the property supported a total of 7 cottages. However, 2 have since been removed. They're actually identified on the site plan here where I'm hovering my mouse. The footprints of all the cottages range between 28.4 square meters, or about 305 square feet, to 52 square meters, or about 560 square feet. So these are fairly small cottages. This application proposes to reconstruct and enlarge an existing structure that was constructed in the 1920s. The enlargement of the cottage will include a slight enlargement of the footprint and an addition of a second-story loft. The addition will result in the gross floor area of the cottage to be increased from 53.4 square meters, or 575 square feet, to 107 square meters, or 1,151 square feet. The existing water body setback of 8.5 meters, or 27.9 feet, will be maintained. So according to the applicant, the application proposes more or less the reconstruction of a cottage as it once existed. This drawing here shows that the original cottage footprint was actually closer to the lake than it is today. So the original footprint is outlined here in blue. At some point, the front portion of the cottage, that's highlighted here in pink, collapsed, and the loft over top of the cottage was deconstructed at some point. So what the applicant is proposing to do is essentially reconstruct the original front portion of the cottage at the rear of the cottage, thereby maintaining the existing water body setback and enlarging the area to the rear away from the lake. The application was circulated to both Quinte Conservation Authority and the Township of South Frontenac Building Services. The Conservation Authority did not object to the application. It's our understanding that QCA staff worked with the applicant to relocate the footprint of the expansion away from the lake. It's also our understanding that the Conservation Authority has already issued a permit for the proposed development. Comments from the Township of South Frontenac. Sewage system review did not object to the application. South Frontenac confirmed that a permit for the new septic system has already been issued. The septic system will be located more than 30 meters from the shoreline of Bull Lake, so therefore it's not subject to this minor variance application. Overall, planning staff find that the proposed application meets the 4 tests of minor variance and are recommending that the committee adjustment hear comments from the public. And if no new information arises, approve this application submitted subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report. Actually, sorry, before I finish, I do want to mention that there were comments that were received from the public regarding this file. They were mainly questions related to what was taking place on the property. The main questions basically stemmed from what was happening in terms of, is this a bunkie that was being renovated into a dwelling? Is this something that was going to create precedent for future renovations of bunkies into dwellings? Planning staff did provide a response to the individual that inquired. No subsequent correspondence was received. So at this point, we are recommending approval of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Do we have the applicant or an agent acting on behalf of the applicant joining us this evening?
We do have the applicant. I'm going to allow him over to speak. Mr. DeMarc, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for Dimitri and the rest of the planning staff for so thoroughly looking at the file. The cottage has been in my family since the 70s, and we just let it go a little too long, I think, by the time I had the chief building official look at it. So I appreciate that and hope you understand we're not trying to build a monster cottage, but rather just replace what we had.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. DeMar. Does anyone on the committee have any questions or comments regarding the application? Victor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is mostly for my own edification. It was my understanding that if you were to do a renovation on an existing footprint, that was permitted, but that you could not do a demolition and then use the original footprint. So if I could have the planning staff speak to that, because I may have learned this wrong.
From my understanding of the zoning bylaw, it does seem that you can reconstruct a building that was in place prior to the zoning bylaw coming into effect. If I'm incorrect, perhaps Jenny could chime in, but I do believe that you are able to demolish and reconstruct what was there as is. If you are expanding the gross floor area or if you are expanding any type of footprint of the structure, even height, that is something that does require a minor variance.
Thank you, Dimitri. Is there any other member of the committee that has any questions or comments regarding the application? Victor?
If I could just ask Bill and Fran to chime in on this. You guys have been around a long time. What has been the procedure, the precedent in the past?
Well, I think part of this is the demolition was just a small part of this cottage that was down. Is that my understanding, Dimitri?
Yeah, yes, it is, through the chair. Actually, I just wanted to provide maybe clarification. Perhaps I wasn't understanding the committee member's question correctly. So they are not seeking approval to reconstruct the portion of the cottage that was previously demolished. The way that we've looked at this application is that they are reconstructing like for like what's there today. And in addition to that, they are constructing an addition to the rear of the cottage as well as the loft. So that's what we were assessing it against. We weren't looking at this as a cottage, as the cottage as it existed in 1924. We were looking at it as the cottage as it existed at the time of when the application was submitted. So the application as it is today is the reconstruction of the footprint plus the addition at the rear plus the addition of the loft. My discussion regarding the existence of the addition and then the existence of the front portion of the area that was collapsed and deconstructed was just for context purposes only.
Victor?
So then, okay, it could be that I've just simply misread the report, but just for clarification, are they going to be demolishing this cottage? Are they taking the entire thing down, putting something brand new up, but just using the original footprint?
It's my understanding that that's exactly what's happening. They are going to be demolishing the cottage and then reconstructing within the same footprint. Perhaps the applicant can chime in on this one as well.
Yes, that's correct. Demolish and rebuild in the same footprint.
Except that your plan is to move the deck that was on the front to the back of the building. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, essentially it was a log cottage and it was 32 feet by 24 feet. The front section had sort of almost a flat roof. 8 feet of it was kind of a flat roof area. That's the part that eventually fell down. So we would take that 8 feet by 24 feet and move it away from the lake when we reconstruct, which was really in working with Quinty, when they came up to have a look at it, it was really their idea of how we might be able to rebuild what we want, but meet the rules.
Okay. Victor, did you have any further comment or question?
Well, what I'm hearing is that my original belief is incorrect. So then I don't have any objections. Now I know better.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the committee that have any questions or comments? Okay, are there any members or from the public that have any comments or questions for the application?
If there's anyone who wishes to speak, can you use the raise hand feature, please? I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay, then I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Nikki that in making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained in the case of a change in a use of property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw. As to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decision and reasons for the decision. That the minor variance application A1721 Demarc for the property located part lot 10 concession 4 in the geographic township of Kennebec, 1130A Bull Lake Road, to reduce the front yard water body setback from 30 meters to 8.5 meters in order to reconstruct and enlarge a non-complying structure be approved subject to the following conditions noted in the planning report, and that the secretary treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of decision to the applicant, any person or public body that had made written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. And the applicant will be sent a copy of the conditions. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And our last application for this evening is A19 KE Shearhorn to reduce the front yard water body setback. And I'll have Crystal introduce the application and one of our planning staff speak to it.
So Mr. Shearhorn is located in the former Kennebec Township on Sunflower Lane, Clear Lake. It's to cover an existing deck with a roof, and similar to the other one, DeMarc's, and I will let, I'm not sure who's speaking on it, Jenny or Dimitri.
Thank you. It'll be Jenny on this one tonight. This application is to add a roof over an existing deck during the reconstruction of the cottage. This property was actually subject of an application. Now that I'm talking, I can't remember. I believe it was last year. I did note the date in the planning report. And at that time, the proposal was to square off the cottage. The existing cottage is actually not perfectly square and had a cutout. At that time, the addition was to add a utility and service room as part of the reconstruction. When plans were submitted, it was noted that the applicant had added a roof over the deck on the water side, as that was not the existing situation, was not accounted for in the previous minor variance. This subsequent minor variance has been applied for to get permission from the committee to add a roof over that deck. The plan is to only have a roof with supporting pillars. No walls, windows, screens of any sort are going to be included in this roof addition. This application was circulated to Quinte Conservation for comments, and they have no objections to the application as submitted, with the understanding that, again, there's not to be any walls or any enclosures of any sort. It really is just a covering roof for shade purposes. They also noted that there will be no increase in footprint, as the roof will be entirely over an existing deck. Well, I say reconstructed deck at that point, but where the existing deck is located today. And there'll be no further reduction in water body setback. Again, it's over where a deck is, and it's just for covering purposes. Conservation Authority has already issued a permit for the reconstruction of the cottage, and pending the approval of this minor variance, the inclusion of the roof can be added to the building permit application for the township. This was not circulated for septic review, as there's no increase in gross floor area as a result of this application, and no comments from the public were received. Based on the analysis, planning staff are recommending that Committee of Adjustment hear any comments from the public, if any, and approve this application as submitted.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Do we have the applicant or an agent for the applicant joining us?
We do have the applicant. I will move him over. Okay, Mr. Shearhorn, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes, thank you, committee. I am here if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shearhorn. Are there any questions or comments regarding the application from any member of the committee? Bill?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I get the feeling, it's just my personal opinion here, is I find it is it necessary to have a minor variance in this situation? All that's happening is that the roof is being put over an already existing deck. And I'm just wondering if the building permit process would have worked just as effectively, because we're not changing any of the setbacks in any way, shape, or form. So I'm wondering if it's just my opinion, but I thought it was frivolous. So just my opinion.
Thank you for your question, Bill. Jenny, would you be able to answer Bill's question?
Yes, I will. The provisions in the bylaw that have resulted from tribunal decisions with regards to reconstruction were very specific, that any reconstruction permitted is provided that exactly what is there is what is rebuilt. So if it is an uncovered deck today, during reconstruction, it must be an uncovered deck. So by adding this roof structure, it is a change from what is there today, and as such does require minor variance for that change.
Thank you for the clarification, Jenny. Does anyone else on the committee have any questions or comments regarding the application?
I just have a comment about, if just to follow that logic, if I were to put an application to include a roof and then change my mind and don't want to include a roof, do I have to make any changes then?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Sorry, just making sure I was unmuted here. If you have approval for a cover and you go for a lesser item, then that does not require minor variance to take something away. It's only when we're adding to it. So if this was proposed to be a screen porch and the resulting construction ended up just being a covered deck, that would be sufficient because it would have been evaluated at the higher level. And if you have a reduction, then that's less of a concern. Similar to if a setback is approved at 8 meters, say, just using the numbers from this, and during construction, they're able to achieve a setback of 10 meters, then that type of thing, if they're able to get a slightly better setback or a footprint is slightly reduced, it still meets the intent of a variance approval.
So could I suggest then in our information that we have for applicants that we do an example of you may want to go for the gusto and not do everything that has to be done. Like in this situation, I'm with Bill. It seems like a lot of just hoops to jump through to put a roof on. So maybe if I were an applicant, if I knew I should make my plans maybe bigger than I might want them, that I can always back off on those, but I can't change my mind and add to them later. It might be worth putting that on an application. Just a
Yes, and I
comment.
can absolutely appreciate that. And we do try and work with applicants during their pre-consultation process to ensure that they understand that minor variances are very specific and that they ask for sort of the highest and best use of what their plans are, with the caveat that we also try and keep them reasonable. So we're not coming up with pipe dream applications that may get turned down by the committee. So it's kind of a fine line between that. We do always encourage that. I believe in this case, it was an oversight or something that may have come up subsequent to the last variance approval that wasn't included or wasn't thought of at that point. But yes, we definitely do try and tell people that they're specific. And if you want to go a little bit bigger and then go smaller, that is definitely the way to go.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the committee have any questions or comments regarding the application? Okay, do we have any members from the public that wish to make any comments or have any questions regarding the application?
I would ask if there is anyone to please use the raise hand feature now. I see no one, Madam Chair.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Brent that in making the decision upon this application, the committee considered whether or not the variance requested was minor and desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan will be maintained, or in the case of the change of use of the property which is lawfully non-conforming under the bylaw, as to whether or not this application has met the requirements of subsection 45(2) of the Planning Act, concur in the following decisions and reasons for the decision. That the minor variance application A1921 Sherhorn for the property located at Part Lot 14, Concession 9, Geographic Township, Kennebec, 1024 Sunflower Lane, is to reduce the front yard water setback from 30 meters to 8 meters in order to cover an existing deck with a roof on the front of the dwelling be approved subject to the following conditions noted in the Planning Act, the planning report, and that the Secretary Treasurer shall issue the notice of decision in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, including providing the notice of the decision to the applicant any person or public body that made written request to be notified, and any other person or public body prescribed. And the applicant will receive a copy of the conditions. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Do we have any other planning business to come before the committee this evening? Okay, I then have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Bill that this meeting is to be adjourned until 4 p.m. on December 9th and to be held virtually. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
The next meeting will have probably quite a few deferred ones on again, so we will need the ones from October meeting maybe there to vote on them. So we could have up to 10 deferred coming next time. Hopefully that will pretty much clean us up.
And why is that, Crystal?
Well, we're either waiting for septic or Quinty comments. Pretty much is what we're waiting for on most of them.
But septic is still working, are they, before the snow falls?
Yeah. I think everybody's just overloaded this year. We're so busy, right? I mean, Quinty's working supposedly 6 weeks behind. So, yeah.
It's amazing.
I know.
Okay, good night, folks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good night,
Night all.
everybody.
Good night.
Night.